As a nutrition coach, you know that sometimes the most difficult part about coaching a client isn't helping them reach their fat loss goals. It's what happens after, which is why in today's video, I'm gonna show you a step-by-step way to help your nutrition clients find their maintenance calories after a fat loss phase and how to approach their nutrition after a cut. Let's get into it. I've had so many questions over the years about this process. I actually have a list of questions to answer. I got a list right here. And today I'm gonna answer them, starting with number one, how do I transition my clients from deficit diet to maintenance calories? All right, the first thing you gotta remember about this process, especially when it comes to what happens after a diet or the reverse diet, is that this process is just as much mental as it is physiological. Put yourself in your client's shoes for a second. They've been dieting for weeks and months. They've finally reached and achieved their goals. They're leaner than ever. They've been focused on hitting a calorie target and not going over that. And now you're going to tell them to add more food in and that they might gain some weight. It's tough to wrap your head around mentally, even if you know it's the best thing for you. So of course we wanna know what the science says when it comes to how to add more food in and what's going to make it most optimal. But we also need to remember that real live humans are doing this work. And if they're not on board adding more food in, it doesn't really matter what the science says. But here's what you gotta understand about working back up to maintenance calories. So if someone's in a calorie deficit, they've been losing fat over weeks and months, obviously their calories are going to be below maintenance. How much below maintenance depends on how restrictive or severe or how long the diet was. But generally, if someone's been losing fat over a period of time, their calories are anywhere between 10 to 30% below their maintenance calories because they've been losing weight. Their body's been tapping into their energy stores, like their fat stores, glycogen stores, even breaking down a little bit of muscle to make up that deficit. And generally the deficit is going to be 10 to 30% below. So we wanna work back up to this level. How long does it take to get back up there? It's gonna take the same amount of time that it took to get down there. So it's going to take 2 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe even 6 weeks to get back up to that level. Generally, we're gonna work back up to maintenance calories by adjusting someone's food intake. You know, the other side of the energy balance equation is going to be their exercise and the amount of calories they're burning. But for the most part, unless they've been doing very high levels, extreme levels of exercise, we're just going to add more food in to make up this difference. We're doing this because someone can't be on a deficit forever. Being closer to maintenance calories or even a slight surplus will allow them to more effectively gain muscle, improve their performance, and be what's best overall for their overall health in the long term. So we wanna add more food in. It's also going to help them down the road if they wanna do another fat loss phase again, because now they have more calories to work with, as well as there's going to be a small hit to their metabolism through the dieting process. So we want to work that back up. So we're gonna add food back in, generally anywhere between 5 to 10% calorie bumps on a week-to-week basis, depending on what we're seeing with their body weight, how they're looking, how they're performing, as well as how they are handling these bumps. For the most part through this process, we're not gonna make these calorie adjustments coming from their protein intake. The changes are gonna come from adjusting their carbohydrate and fat intake. So we're making a 5% calorie adjustment. For most people, that is gonna be between 50 to 150 calories being added in, which means we can be adding anywhere between 10 grams of carbohydrates or 3 to 5 grams of fat, upwards to 30 to 40 grams of carbs, 5 to 15 grams of fat on a weekly basis. And then we're gonna watch what happens with their body weight. Now, in most cases, as you add in more carbs to someone's diet, and they've been dieting for a period of time, they are going to add some scale weight. But this doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be bad weight. As you know, if your muscle glycogen has been decreased over periods of time and you add more carbs in, that is going to fill in your muscles and that's going to be accompanied with some water. So it's not uncommon for someone to see a 1 to 2 pound spike in their body weight on a week-to-week basis. But anything more than that generally indicates that they're gaining more body fat than we would like. And pictures and visuals are gonna allow us to assess this as well. If your client's not taking pictures, that's totally fine, but ask them about how they're feeling about their look and if they're noticing any changes, as well as how their clothes are fitting. Now you can be slow and patient through this process, not so slow that you continue to keep them in a deficit, but slow enough on a week-to-week basis. Say make one change, bump their food levels up, wait a few weeks based on what you're seeing until you make another change. So they're also mentally adjusting to these new food levels goals as well as the changes within their body. Now, a lot of these strategies are born from physique athletes where they're adding more food in and reverse dieting over periods of time, and they're coming from a level of leanness that they can't maintain. For a lot of general population clients, this isn't the case. They come down to a body weight that they should be able to maintain, and we just want to slowly add food in for them to move towards maintenance calories while staying within the target of their new body weight. Next question, how do I talk to my client about increasing their food intake? So for this one, we do want to give some educational explanations, telling them that during the fat loss phase, protein was really important. But now as we're working towards maintenance calories, we're gonna add in more carbohydrates and fat. So generally thinking about adding in more of your carb sources and fat sources is going to make it easier to stick to the numbers. Which brings me to my next point. What should my client expect when it comes to weight and body comp changes? So for the most part, there shouldn't be huge changes in their actual body composition. They might feel that their muscles are a bit more full. They might feel slightly less lean, but a lot of times this is just because they're adding more carbs in, there's a bit more water weight, and they might feel a bit more puffy, especially if they're starting to make different food choices like saltier foods because they have more calories to play with. But for the most part, if they're experiencing more than 1 to 2 pounds of body weight gain on average per week, you're gonna adjust the food levels to keep that in check. How much weight gain would be normal or expected in maintenance? Over the period of 2 to 6 weeks working up to maintenance levels. And remember, everyone's gonna be a little bit different in terms of how they adjust. I would say for a general population client, we're talking about 2 to 5 pounds total over the course of those weeks. But for a physique or bodybuilding client, we're working them back up from stage leanness to a level of leanness that they can maintain. So that for the most part can be anywhere between 10 to 25 pounds up. But for most people, that 2 to 5 pounds over the course of almost months is the sweet spot. And remember, this doesn't mean that it's all body fat. Some of it will be, but for the most part, it's gonna be a bit more water, full muscles, and more higher energy levels. All right, so the next one we got here is what strategies can I provide to my clients to prevent weight gain? This is a great one. So for the most part, we've been working in our food levels and working those up, but we really haven't talked about exercise for the most part. One of the smartest things you can do with these clients is that if they haven't already been focusing on a step goal, we can start to ramp up their low intensity exercise like their steps to compensate for some of the bumps in food. But at the end of the day, we want more energy as well. Even if that comes with a bump in the scale, that's part of the process and part of the reason why we're doing it. But generally they can use some more of that energy to fuel low intensity exercise, and that can help them minimize some of the unwanted fat gain. One of the smartest things they can do is not necessarily start to eat a bunch of different foods. They can eat similar foods just in larger amounts with the focus on bumping up their carbs and fats. So if they're typically eating rice or pasta, we can bump up those serving sizes, as well as if they have parfaits or oatmeal in the morning, they don't generally put any fat sources on it. We can start sprinkling in some almonds or pumpkin seeds, stuff like that. One of the smartest things they can do, and the reason why they still have you, is keep up with some level of accountability. There's this myth in the nutrition coaching and coaching world that you're supposed to give your clients all the right habits and help them build that stuff out. Then you release them to the wild and they're free forever and they continue to do all the things they've always done. This isn't the case. This isn't how this works. And it's not a reflection of you. It's not a reflection of them as the client. One of the best things they can do through this process, especially if it's something new and they're adding more food in, is continue to work with the coach and get some accountability to help them stick to the things that's going to improve their metabolism and their physique, as well as stick with things so that mentally they're in the right place. This doesn't mean that they need you forever, but this will be really helpful through this process. Now, as I'm answering all of these questions, I'm realizing that this would make a really good one-page guide on how to find maintenance calories or how to reverse diet with your clients. If you want me to put that together, write the words guide down in the comments below. Now, what do you do if your client is resistant to adding more food in? Again, you want them to see why it's in their best interest to add in more food. One thing you could start doing is start small with some of these changes. We talked about those 50 calorie or 5% bumps. In reality, it can be 2.5%. What we want to do with a client that's resistant is to add food in and get them to see that the world does not stop spinning. Their physique stays similar, the scale stays similar, their performance improves, and they start to build some confidence that this is the right direction for them. Or we further detail the pros and cons of staying the same and staying closer to a deficit, which could mean low energy and low libido and just not performing all that well, but staying just as lean but with lower energy. Or we talk about adding more food in and maintaining their physique, but focusing on performance and health. We gotta position this side as why it's in their best interest and get them to see why they need to go down this path. Now, here's something that can be really helpful though. How can I help clients focus towards a new health goal? This is the most important thing. We wanna get them focusing on something else, something that isn't body weight related, but it's probably more performance related. Because they have more food now, they might as well focus on utilizing that food and making the most of it. So help them pick a new goal and focus on performance. Something like a Spartan race or a lifting competition. You really want to pick a new goal that isn't body comp related and they can make the most of all the new food that they're eating. You got to remember this championship effect. You know what happens after an athlete works their entire life working towards something and they finally get to the pinnacle of their sport and they win? They feel so elated and they celebrate. Well, the days after, they feel completely lost. This thing that was staring them in the face for so long is no longer not there, and they start to question everything, their identity and all that type of stuff. This is the off-season hangover, and it can happen with our fat loss clients, obviously not to the same effect, but they don't have this thing staring themselves right in the face anymore. Maybe they had a beach vacation and they wanted to focus on how they would look with their shirt off, and now that's no longer there. They need something else to replace this, but they also need to be kind to themselves in the meantime so they can work towards that new goal. And that's it, folks. Those are the exact steps to take to work a nutrition client that has just been in a fat loss phase up to their maintenance calorie levels. What questions do you have about this process? Make sure to drop them in the comments below. And if you want me to put that one-page guide together, let me know you're interested by writing the words guide in the comments below. Now, as great as all these tips are, if you're really serious about starting a nutrition coaching business, the next thing I'm gonna have you do is check out this video I've linked up right here. If you liked this video, you're gonna love this next video. I'm gonna show you 3 ways to help your nutrition clients move away from tracking. So make sure to check it out now, and I'll see you in the next video.